Chapter 1, The King of Barbarians. Part 1. Regis became a strategist. Although he wasn't confident, he had to make it work somehow. He had quietly told Altina the best course of action. Having been acknowledged as the commander, she issued the orders to the troops. I order Sir Jerome to lead 100 cavalry to intercept the enemy, find out the number of enemy forces and form a battlefront if possible. If the enemy force is too large, you are to withdraw with the safety of our forces as the priority. Orders received. General Jerome, who became her subordinate willingly because of the duel, led the cavalry out of the fort. The sound of hooves, clashes of iron and courageous roars came from beyond the stone walls. Turning their back to the sound of battle, Regis and Altina headed for the central tower. At the top of the central tower was an observation post overlooking the battlefield, and doubled as a conference room to simulate battle tactics. First, he needed to treat the wounds Altina sustained during the duel. She had won because of the founding emperor's sword and some luck, but she was heavily injured and it wouldn't be strange if she needed to be carried in a stretcher. It must be hard on her, but she still wanted to walk on her own 2 feet. The loser Jerome had headed out to battle, so if the winner Altina couldn't even walk, her objective to display her strength would be in vain. Blood dripped slowly on the snow by her feet. The young girl, who looked like she was going to collapse, dragged her feet and forged ahead. Pa! Come on, Altina. Regis beside her couldn't do anything other than encouraging her on softly. The distance from the parade square to the central tower seemed so far away. The tower in the middle of the fortress was a massive building made of stone. The main gate was made from steel. After much effort, they finally made it past the door. Regis used his body weight to close the door. Yugu tilde. The steel door closed with a loud bang. The passageway enclosed by the stone walls became dark. The sound of fighting seemed far away. After she was out of sight from the soldiers, Altina collapsed. She leaned on the wall and panted intensely. Altina, are you okay? Yeah, Pa, Yugu, I'm fine, I can still stand. The soldiers in the fortress had headed to their battle stations because of the savages' attack, or were preparing to head out in the parade square. They wouldn't see the scene inside the central tower, so it was fine to rest here for a moment. Altina, all will be lost if you die. Don't push yourself, have a good rest. Yugu, yeah, and so she rested her back on the stone wall and caught her breath. Regis sat beside her too, and looked at her profile. Her mother might be a peasant, but she was made a concubine because of her exceptional beauty. Altina was said to be even more beautiful than her mother. Her shiny red hair seemed more glamorous after the dangerous battle. Her slightly opened eyes and her ruby-like pupils seemed more profound. While she was exhausted, her skin was whiter than snow without a hint of darkness. Even Regis, who wasn't too concerned about a lady's beauty, was captivated. Her innocent profile reminded him that she was just a 14-year-old girl. In the Bulgarian Empire, only those who were 15 would be treated as adults. So Altina was still a child, but she was strong, be it her skills with the sword or her resolve. She wouldn't give up no matter how dear the situation. Even though her hands were stained with dirt and blood, Regis thought that she looked beautiful just like this. Her thin porcelain-like smooth fingers looked as though it might snap with a gentle touch. Those fingers wielded a heavy 2-handed sword taller than she was, defeating the hero Jerome, renowned for his combat prowess. Her unfathomable arm strength was probably because of her lineage and training. She was too amazing. What is it, Regis? Altina looked at him. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm feeling much better. Rather than that, you are staring at me? What is it? I'm staring at you? Yes, you are. I can feel my body being pierced by your gaze. Nah, do I look weird? Dirt on my face? Don't hold back and just tell me such matters. No, you are fine. Beautiful. Huh? Regis covered his own mouth. What did I say to a child 5 years my junior? I was captivated by you because you are too beautiful. A bard from the imperial capital would probably present this song at this moment. But regrettably, Regis didn't have such artistic talent. He could only keep quiet and blush. Altina looked at him with a face of worry. Did you catch a cold because you watched the duel in the blizzard? Your face is all red. Take care and don't catch a cold, alright? Her right hand reached for Regis. He shuddered at this and backed away. His reflex was because of embarrassment, but she seemed mistaken. Sorry. My hands are dirty, right? No, it's not that. Don't mind me. I don't like flattery or sympathy. My hands are totally different from the noble ladies, right? It's full of sweat during training and the dirt and blood from the duel. I mean it. It's not that. Regis reached out his hand this time. Even if his heart was beating wildly, he was still determined to resolve this misunderstanding. He placed his hand on top of Altina's hand. Your hands are really pretty. These are hands that carried out your own will. Because I don't have experience with intimate contact with females, so I'm not used to touching girls, so I was a bit startled. Yeah, although he succeeded in making her understand, he missed the chance to retract his hand. Regis thought about it. This scene was the same as one in a book he read not long ago. He remembered it was Killer Rosral's love journey. I took the young lady's hand, letting it caress my face and kiss the sweet flower petals. No way, if the story progressed in that direction, he would be hung for disrespecting royalty. Master Killer. Regis was very troubled. It's a pity, but the main character in any story wouldn't be so useless and let go of a girl's hand without doing anything after praising her beauty. He didn't have anything to refer to, just as he was wondering what to do and was petrified. Cough cough. He heard a coughing sound made forcefully. He turned back and saw a maid in blue uniform, Claire, smiling at him. Do you want to accumulate experience in touching females with the princess, who can't even walk as your partner in private? Mr. Regis. I wasn't planning on doing that. You're unexpectedly devious. Am not. What did you plan to do to the princess? Not planning to do anything. Is that so? I was wondering if the princess needs treatment. That's it. Of course. The troops will see her in the infirmary, so we can't go there. Go back to her room with changing her clothes as an excuse, then summon the doctor over. Altina nodded in agreement. Clarice expressed her understanding. I understand. And so, princess, heave-ho. Altina placed her hands on the wall and pushed herself up. Phew. Finally, strength has returned to my legs. Her face looked at ease. Regis straightened his back too. Don't push yourself too hard. They are beginning the battle out there, right? I am acknowledged as the commander after winning the duel, so no one will treat me as a bother. There will be problems if you act too recklessly. Death will certainly come. My death from stomach ulcer. That will be troubling. I worked so hard for you to become my strategist. Altina, quickly return to your room and receive the treatment from the doctor properly. These words. Is it the advice of a strategist, or a 5th grade admin officer, or as a friend? It is of course as a strategist. We promised him. Well, I have to listen obediently. Altina started to walk and Clarice followed in silence quietly. She didn't support her, just walking alongside her, but she was in position to help if Altina faltered. Then again, why is Miss Clarice here? The plan was for her to wait at the carriage, because I believe the princess will win the duel and return to her room. But I didn't expect Mr. Regis to be holding her hands so tightly. There was a complicated reason behind that, just like in the stories. And that is, well, this time, Altina was blushing together with Regis too. Although Clarice's words were full of impact as usual, her expression was gentle. Mr. Regis, please leave the princess to me. No, I will accompany you for a while. I have delegated Sir Everard to be the second wave. Everard was the Knight Commander of Aylesmith Border Regiment, a fierce veteran and reliable warrior. Clarice seemed to understand and nodded. That means you want to watch the princess get undressed while being treated. I didn't say that. I know. You are worried about the princess, of course, but I am worried about the princess' purity. You are making me out to be a beast no matter what. I never thought of such a thing before. Regis shrugged. Clarice's gaze dropped downwards. Is that so? I was wondering if that is fine for a man. Altina looked confused. Clarice patted the head of the staggering Altina. My princess is so cute, my princess. What's going on? Miss Clarice is the worrying one. She will probably teach Altina some weird things. Regis mumbled to himself. For the princess without a single friend in the palace, her common knowledge was shockingly lacking. She would be an adult 1 year later and be of marriageable age. Regis was a bit worried, but everything he knew came from books anyway. To be honest, it didn't feel real for Regis to have this conversation. His status was too different from Altina. It was normally impossible for them to chat idly. She was the princess as well as the commander. Her rank was Major General. In comparison, Regis' family had been commoners for generations. He might be a strategist now, but his rank in the army was just a 5th grade admin officer. Major General, Brigadier General, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th grade, their ranks were 6 tiers apart. Having permission to address her by her nickname was nothing short of a miracle. Regis shook his head strongly to remove unnecessary thoughts. The soldiers outside were engaging the barbarians. His job was to think of the battle plan, even if his confidence was lacking. Well, I will go to the observation deck at the highest floor and direct the battle from there. I'm leaving it in your hands, Regis. I believe in you, Mr. Regis. Clarice was smiling with ease. After parting with them, Regis ran up the stairs. He was exhausted when he reached the top floor. He rested his hands on his knees, focusing on sending air into his lungs. Phew. 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 Are you okay? A young knight ran over, about 16 of age, younger than Regis. His blonde hair was tied up at the back. He had blue eyes and a slim face, a handsome man with a refreshing expression. He was wearing top-grade metal armor with a golden long sword at his waist, a character right out of a novel. His voice was as clear as a girl. Are you hurt anywhere? No. Regis, who was confident in his lack of confidence to the extreme, was hesitant in telling the youth younger than him that climbing the stairs were killing him. He still had that meager amount of pride in him. He shifted his gaze and regulated his breathing. Phew. Phew. Not. It's nothing. I'm glad you are healthy, Sir Regis. Have we met before? My name is Eric Michael de Blanchard. Eric bowed before him politely. When Regis heard the last name Blanchard, he recalled a familiar name. Could it be? You are Sir Everard's grandson? I remember you were in Marquis Thinsay's army. Yes, Regis heard from Everard that his grandson was in the same unit where Regis used to work as a staff officer. The barbarians they were battling attacked the gap in their formation, wiping out Marquis Sensei's headquarters. Eric was saved because of Regis' command, or at least Eric thought so. For Regis, he thought the combat officer of the reserves unit deserved the credits. He took another good look at him. This must be what they mean by graceful appearance. The Knight Commander Revered was like a gorilla in armor wielding a halberd, a giant bald man with a short beard. Regis thought he was still in his prime, but was shocked by how old his grandson was. But most surprising was the lack of any semblance between the two. Eric's face was blushing from agitation. The steady figure, calm attitude and precise command of Sir Regis back then. I was convinced you are the man I should bet my life on and devote my service to. His tone was strong, but not crude. His refreshing smile was elegant like a shining fountain, holding Regis who almost died just climbing stairs with such high regards. Regis felt sorry about it. I heard you volunteered to come here? Yes, I just reached here last night. I wanted to greet you, but you seem to be busy. Not many people would want to come to the front lines here. This is a dangerous place. That's why I am here. I was saved by Sir Regis. This time I will become Sir Regis's shield. I am very grateful. But I am not worthy. Didn't you assume the post of strategist? I saw the duel and your declaration just now. He had to say that in that situation. It wasn't a lie, but to Regis who wasn't used to being the center of attention, he wanted to curl up into a ball. Would I be able to serve well in the role of a strategist? And the commander of the border regiment is the 4th Princess Marie Quater. A knight should swear fealty towards a princess, right? Although Regis was granted permission to address Altina by her nickname, he still avoided doing so in the presence of others to prevent bad rumors from arising. Of course, as a knight of the Bulgarian Empire, my sword would be wielded in the service of the royalty and nobles. But the bonfire of hope you ignited in the despair of the dark would never be forgotten. That's a line straight from the theaters. Regis read about operas so he didn't dislike it, but the compliments from others made him uneasy. Bonfire. If you mean a lamp, I was carrying one back then. He averted his eyes unconsciously. Eric's excitement didn't cool down as he said with a smile, I had brought the princess sword with me by my grandfather's orders. Regis finally caught his breath and looked towards the conference room. A piece of cloth was laid over the table and Altina's Grandtana Quater was placed on it. She couldn't bring it along with her physical condition after the duel, so they had to send someone to deliver it here. The mud and snow had been cleaned off, leaving it in its original glory. It did not even have a scratch after it went through such a fierce battle. The window partitions leading to the observation deck were wide open, guarded by 2 knights. They saluted when their gaze met Regis. Regis went through the windows and reached a position where he could watch the battle. The snow was slowly piling up, the wind blew towards his face. This was the second time he came to the observation deck of this conference room. The previous time was the following morning after first arriving at Cirque Fortress and Altina showed him around. The scenery before him was spectacular then, but the view was obscured by snow this time and he can't see far into the distance. This wasn't the time to enjoy the sights anyway. The battle was progressing before his eyes. Cirque Fort was constructed on the grounds sloping towards the north. A large group of soldiers were gathered in the parade square, waiting for the signal to deploy. Setting the forces on defense duties aside, the standby units numbered 2,300 cavalries were sent out. They faced 600 savages. The situation had evolved from the initial clash to glaring at each other from a distance. If they engaged in melee combat, they will fight until one side retreats. But with proper command and control, it was possible to pull some distance away for a chance to rest before unnecessary casualty were caused by fatigue. Jerome and Everard's cavalries adopt a formation defending the fort. The barbarians set their eyes on their prey, waiting for a chance from afar like beasts. On the snowy white plains ravaged by footsteps, several people lay down with no signs of movement. Although the savages had greater losses, the Empire's cavalries also had casualties. Eric came to Regis' side. What a great number for the barbarians to muster. Yes, the barbarians in this region seemed exceptionally strong, and there should probably be more. Why did you think so? Look at how the savages were behaving. They are glancing to their back every now and then. If the rear guards were doing that, they might just be worried about their retreat route being cut off. But the ones in front are doing the same, so it should be right to say they are waiting for reinforcement. I get it now. But why attack in waves? Is it to buy time to transport artillery? Barbarians don't have artillery. The plan was probably for the 600th vanguard to infiltrate the fortress under the cover of a blizzard and open the gates for reinforcement. The savages can use such tactics? Well, they can do at least this much to take a fort. But they should be retreating after that plan failed. Could they have some reason compelling them to seize the fort? The stalemate didn't last long. The barbarians charged with a roar. The battle started anew. Bracing their lances, the cavalries prepared to engage. This should be their victory in normal cases. It was not surprising for 300 cavalries to rout 600 savages with ease, but there were many strong warriors amongst the barbarians, making them a match for the cavalries. Leading all the barbarians was a man in flamboyant attire wielding a giant war axe. Both his appearance and his power were prominent. The cavalries facing him attacked with their lances. The lances were then broken by the war axe. The man then leaped deftly like a monkey, going higher than the horse's back and slashed his war axe with one hand. The knight bled profusely from his head, and fell limply from the horse. There were few savages that can defeat knights one-on-one. Not the knights with empty titles living lavishly in the imperial capital, but the ones in the front lines. It was unusual for them to fall so easily. Regis, who was watching, sighed. That is the barbarian king? Who do you mean? Eric besides him asked. According to the scouting reports, there was a powerful figure that united at least 3 barbarian tribes. I see, so that's their king? I don't know about their hierarchy makeup, but calling the biggest fish in the pond as the king should be common, and thus, the barbarian king. Eric nodded in enlightenment. His voice was calm with no hint of a smile. Now wasn't the time to chat happily. They lost 2 more riders. Jerome charged over on his jet black horse. He wasn't in armor as he was dueling in uniform and moved out in this attire. He wasn't holding the thin spear used in the duel, but a silver lance. Regis pointed at Jerome. That is Sir Jerome's lance, Lashiva Dame, Dame's hair. It is famous as the weapon of heroes. 4.2 pascals, 311 centimeters, long. The tip is made from fairy silver. Fairy silver was said to be a gift from the fairies to the Flame Emperor. There was a legend like that. The current theory says it is some form of natural alloy, smelting several types of metals and mixing them to form material better than iron. This was common knowledge in this era. Jerome thrust with his lance. The attack was so sharp even the bystanders could tell from afar that it was better than the other knights. The lance shot forward in an instant. The barbarian king blocked it with his war axe and tried to close the gap in order to counterattack. Seeing through his opponent's intention, Jerome thrust his lance at his enemy. When the lance was about to hit, the barbarian king twisted his upper body to dodge, not giving the barbarian king time to recover. Jerome aimed for his heart and pressed the attack. It was parried by the war axe again. Jerome's enemy retreated. They were about equal in abilities, but his weapon and being on a horse gave Jerome the edge. Regis analyzed the battle before him. Everett was dispersing the savages with his giant halberd. As expected of the knight captain. I want to fight too. Sir Regis, allow me to reinforce them. We should send out the third wave if the enemy has reinforcements, right? That was the normal course of command. No matter how the process goes, all the forces will be deployed from the front. The enemy will run if we send in more troops at this point. Isn't expelling them the objective? You are correct, but they will definitely try again. If possible, I want this battle to affect all future engagements as well. Future engagements? What do you mean? Pen and paper. Eric ran to the conference room and brought paper, pen and ink over. Regis thought about using the table, but he remembered the thundering quartet placed on it. It will be a huge mistake that would be chronicled in a history book if he drip ink on the sword. And Regis felt he might do just that with how preoccupied he was. Sorry, could you hold the ink for me? Eric took the place of a desk. He started to write hurriedly. Will this do? This should be easy to understand. He signed off and rolled the paper up. The ink wasn't dry yet, but it's fine if it's legible. Please deliver this to Sir Jerome, Sir Everard and the commander in the parade square. Understood. This is the very first orders of the strategist. That is true. Since it's Sir Regis, there must be brilliant instructions written on it. That is impossible. It's still manageable when a unit was around 300 men, but for the border regiment with 3,000 soldiers, skillful command is just a theory on paper. That's how it is if you don't prepare the orders. Commanding in this era is like predicting 5 steps ahead in chess and giving instructions. Eric looked at the paper in his hand. You mean you had written the next 5 steps in this? Well, you can say that. That is like a prophecy. I can divine the future. And I heard it's not anything good either. I just coincidentally read similar battle records and happen to know about this. I will deliver this message even if it cost me my life. No, it's okay to lose it. I can just write another one. Just don't get hurt. Yes, alright, I understand. Practically speaking, writing the same thing won't work as the battle progresses. But Regis was afraid Eric might be too young and rash. As Eric was leaving, he said to the knights on standby. You guys too. There is nothing else for you, so I'll leave escorting Eric to you. They looked at each other in surprise, then salute to express their comprehension. The 3 knights left the conference room. Regis supported his face with his hand while leaning on the railing of the observation deck. Should he have told Eric the future of the Empire was depending on the safe delivery of the message? That would definitely improve his morale. Usually, young soldiers in such positions are reckless with their lives. The man-on-man fight between Jerome and the barbarian king was intense. It was clear even on the observation deck that Jerome's attack was filled with bloodthirst. That doesn't mean he was going easy on Altina back then, but he was definitely fighting without intending to kill the princess. The barbarian king was good too, fending off the consecutive attack with his war axe while looking for an opening to break the lance and counterattack. If the lance wasn't made from fairy silver, it probably would break. In the end the war axe cracked in a clash, forcing the barbarian king back. Jerome wanted to press the attack, but Eric made it just in time. The orders were relayed. Jerome was far away from Regis, but he still glared at him. The distance from the observation deck to the battlefield was vast and you shouldn't be able to see the expression. But Jerome somehow conveyed his anger. It couldn't be helped since this was a battle. But if the distance wasn't this far, that gaze might have stopped Regis' heart. What would he have said if they were within speaking distance? Jerome's 100 cavalry and Everard's 200 riders clear to either side. leaving a route to the fortress. He wasn't happy, but Jerome carried out his orders. At the same time, the main gate opened. The giant metal gate opened outwards. At this time, the sound of footsteps rushing to the conference room could be heard. Altina barged in, her left wrist in a sling. She wore a new dress, wearing all her armor except the ones on her chest and left arm. Behind her was the maid Clarice and Dash. That lady looked displeased. "Princess, didn't I told you to rest quietly?" Wearing spectacles that were expensive in this era and with her hair cut to the same length, she gave off the impression of a man. Her identity was the Imperial Doctor, 29 years of age. Regis didn't get her name. Female doctors were rare in the Empire, and Cirque Fortress only had one doctor, so everyone addressed her as the Lady Doctor. Just like Clarice, she seemed to have followed the princess since her time in the palace. Altina looked much better. Regis smiled with relief. The Lady Doctor squinted her eyes behind her glasses and roared. Altina shook her right hand. "I am really fine. I can walk normally now." "Lady Doctor is overprotective?" Regis asked in shock. The Lady Doctor nodded in irritation. "Really? You are the princess. Full recovery will be in 3 months." "Princess, please don't increase my workload. Wouldn't it be boring if you don't practice your medical skills?" Altina refused to compromise. Wild animals were said to continue hunting even if they suffer a fracture. "That's how it is. Nothing we can do about it." Regis and the Lady Doctor sighed deeply. "Hot Hilda, our princess is just like the Grey Wolves." "What? It can't be helped since there was a duel." "That aside, how goes the battle?" "Regis, have we won?" Altina stood beside Regis and watched the situation from the observation deck. "Huh? What is happening? Won't the enemy march right in?" "Well, Jerome and Everett split to either side and the main door is left open. We will intimidate them with the possibility of attack from 3 sides. In such a situation, they should be guarding the front of the fortress, and split to either side after the reinforcements are deployed. If you open the main gate before them, wouldn't the enemy charge in?" Altina analyzed the situation deftly. "Impressive. You have memorized the basics of tactics. It is obvious there is a catastrophic failure here. The enemy will enter via the main gate." "Ah, they're coming in one after another?" The savages were charging into the parade square inches front of the central tower. They were engaging the Empire troops who had mustered for reinforcement. The Lady Doctor's face turned pale. "Hey, Mr. Strategist, is it really okay?" "For the time being, I believe in Regis. So, please explain to me clearly." "Explanation? How should I?" "If you are the barbarians, if the defending troops suddenly retreats, and the main gate were wide open, what would you think?" Altina answered immediately. The Lady Doctor replied, "Could this be a trap?" Clarice said, "I don't know." Regis continued to explain. "Well, that's the few possible opinions. People who attack thinking it's a chance, some who are wary about the possibility of a trap and others who don't understand and can't take any action. They will definitely split in their opinions. It's a tough question. A real battle is different from chess. The actions might be unorthodox. The soldiers are battling under the delicate psychological balance of fear and glory. Won't they attack en masse and then play by ear? If they knew this was happening, it might be possible to maintain command. But the barbarians don't have a clear chain of command, so they will be slow to attack if they spot an unexpectedly good opportunity." The Lady Doctor tilted her head. "Why would they attack together even though it's possible this is a trap?" "I won't go if it was up to me. I will decide my things on my own, because the Empire's cavalry are watching from the sides. They have to follow if their comrades charge. They will be attacked on both sides by the cavalries if they stay." "Ah, I see. So they have to go along." "Yeah, but the riders will be faster in climbing up the snowy slope, so Sir Jerome and Sir Everard's riders will return to the main gate faster than them." Only 200 of the 600 savages made it into the fort. The slow advance of the enemy was cut off by the cavalries from the side. The horsemen turned into a double wall in front of the main gate. "I see. Divide and conquer. There's another reason? Splitting them is just a means, a way to surround the strongest chess piece of the enemy. The barbarian king is very strong. Even Sir Jerome finds it hard to subdue him. Judging from his personality, he seemed to prefer standing on the forefront of the battle, reckless, like a certain princess." Right. Altina nodded in agreement. "That's how a commander should act. In my last unit, the headquarters were usually situated in the rear. Anyway, we should make use of this. He should charge in straight if he spots any weakness." "Mr. Regis, is everything going well? What are you worrying about then?" Is that the expression on my face?" "Oh no, that's how it looks to me." Altina and the Lady Doctor stared at him after listening to Clarice. Regis scratched his head. "On the whole, things are progressing as I expects, but there is one worrying factor. If the savages refuse to surrender, the strategy would be a failure." Eric had relayed the orders to the soldiers in the parade square. The soldiers equipped with giant shields to defend against arrows formed a wall inside the main gates. Behind them were pikemen ready to attack. After setting the improvised trap, the gates opened and the barbarians swarmed in shortly after. The barbarians roared like beasts and charged. The thick wood and leather shields were being ripped apart, and the pikes thrust out. The chests of the savages were pierced, spraying out blood. The battle would be a failure if they broke through the encirclement. With a large number of non-combatants supporting the soldiers in the fortress, there would be many casualties. The Empire's soldier in the parade square numbered 1,000. The barbarians were 200 strong. They could subdue them under normal conditions. A man suddenly flew out from the besieged barbarians. Regis, who was watching from the observation deck, pointed at him. "That's the barbarian king." Altina leaned out to look. One of the savages probably noticed Regis watching them. Regis didn't even have time to notice. The iron-tipped arrow flew through the air. Even though he might have avoided the barbarian king's attention, he didn't have the skill to fend off the arrow. The tip was right before his eyes. Altina pounced on Regis suddenly. A metallic thud echoed out. Altina used her right wrist armor to deflect the incoming arrow. Regis finally noticed after he saw the arrow falling off. "What is it? Are you hurt? Or are you alright, Altina? What about your wound?" "Me? I simply blocked with my armor." "It's impossible for arrows fired from a bow to pierce metal armor, right?" "I am not asking about that. Anyway, she seemed to be fine." The barbarian king leapt up high, over the heads of the people around him. Using the shoulders of his underlings, he jumped again, over the top of the Empire soldiers bracing with pikes and shields. Using a new giant war axe, he smashed the heads of the soldiers. The soldier beside him swung his sword in a frenzy. The barbarian king dodged and sent the man's arm flying with his war axe. His strength made the surrounding people fall into chaos. How widespread was the damage? Maybe the encirclement had already collapsed. Years ago, in a battle with Germania, Black Knight Jerome broke through the enemy heavy cavalry from the front, becoming the hero that turned the tide of war. Maybe the barbarian king would achieve similar accomplishment and become a new legend. If the strategist was inept, while Regis was being intimidated by the flying arrow, his plan was underway. When someone leapt up, they would notice one section of the encirclement was weaker than the rest, and the barbarian king charged there naturally. He was forced into such a situation. If he didn't break out of the siege, the members of his tribe stuck inside the fort will be decimated. Using his tribesmen as a platform, the barbarian king jumped again. The Empire soldiers who were unarmed with swords or pikes lied in wait ahead and threw something out. The troops shouted in unison. It was a rope anchored by 3 lead weight, mainly used for hunting. It was a throwing weapon known as bolas. Unlike arrows, it was a wide area weapon, able to hit fast-moving critters easily. But it was seldom used in warfare. Several of it was thrown out at the same time. The barbarian king wielded his war axe, deflecting 3 of it, but one of it entangled his arm. When he flicked it off, another got his legs. The lead weight hit his stomach and the king fell down with one arm propping himself up. When he lifted his head, several halberds were in front of him. A captain-ranked knight roared fiercely, "Don't move, you monkey!" As he raised his sword. A loud sound that overwhelmed the fighting noises in the parade square was uttered clearly. Regis' ears were ringing because he was standing next to her. By her command, the knight stilled his blade, sparing the barbarian king's life. "What is it all of a sudden? I want to speak with that person." He didn't catch that because his ears were ringing. Not really. Regis was just surprised by what she said. For the citizens of Bulgaria, barbarians were in existence similar to dangerous beasts. It was like trying to talk to a man-eating wolf, so others would look at her with confusion. It was a common assumption that you couldn't communicate with savages, although Regis thought differently. But he was surprised when someone like Altina said something like that. "Isn't it a pity for a powerful warrior to die like this?" "I do not understand how that is a pity, but I agree to a dialogue. In fact, I think it is necessary for you right now. I don't really get you, but it seemed that you do approve of this." Altina took a deep breath. Regis took a step back and cupped her ears. Clarice and a lady doctor did the same. Altina shouted once again, "I, the 4th Princess Marie-Quarter Argentina de Bulgaria, wish to speak with the king of barbarians." Both sides ceased battle immediately. She just shouted out her true feelings, but the soldiers thought of it as a declaration of victory. It was an announcement of the barbarian king's capture, and adding in the excitement of the battle, it naturally evolved into this. The soldiers raised their sword or pikes, cheering victoriously, "Long live Marie-Quarter! Vive l'Empereur!" With the battle decided conclusively, the cheers completely demoralized the savages. After climbing up the steep slope in a blizzard, battling the tough cavalries and besieged after charging into the fort, the accumulated fatigue was a major contributing factor. Most of the barbarians let go of their weapon and knelt. Part 2. The savages were gathered in a corner of the fort with their backs to the wall, guarded by soldiers with pikes and bows at least 10 paces away. The blizzard was over, but it was still winter in the northern region. If this was not resolved overnight, there might be people freezing to death. Altina and the barbarian king's dialogue must conclude before dawn. Regis thought, the cheers should be audible outside the fort too. Nearly 400 of the savages didn't surrender and they congregated in a bunch a short distance away from the fortress. It was easy for the cavalry to press the attack, but that was prohibited. Instead, they were tasked with informing the savages about the dialogue between the barbarian representative and the empire's commander. That was Regis' recollection of the events so far. He was worried about a massacre happening. If the savages didn't surrender, the empire's army that had them surrounded might kill them off. It's nothing special, but Regis wanted to avoid that for both strategical and emotional reasons. It was great that losses on both sides were kept to a minimum. Regis breathed in relief. Just as Regis thought, the reinforcement of the barbarians appeared shortly after. They joined the group outside the fort, considering their options as they looked over here, but they remained in place without attacking or retreating. They seemed to be waiting for the dialogue to end. Year of the Empire 850, the last battle of Cirque Fortress came to an end in a tense atmosphere. Jerome returned to the central tower with the attitude of the cavalry charge. Regis was logging the battle reports on the table in the conference room. It should have been done by appointed personnel, but with all the admin officers chased off by Jerome, there was no one else to fill in the post. Altina returned to her room to change into a dress for the dialogue with the barbarian king. She couldn't attend the dialogue with her left hand in a sling. What the hell was that battle plan? That, considering the blizzard, it will be hard to chase them down if they were to scatter. So you let them into the fort? You allow the savages to enter. We will be the laughingstock of the neighboring nations? It's fine. Having a 14-year-old princess as the commander is enough for them to make fun of us. Regis calmed him down with soothing words. That's good. Let them underestimate us. It's an effective strategy for both defense and offense for the enemy to misjudge our strength. I get it. This is indeed a strategy someone like you who likes useless schemes will come up with. But you missed out one thing. I hate people looking down on me. Regis scratched his head. He didn't factor that in. Regis thought Jerome was angry about the usage of the fort as a trap, but turned out it was a matter of pride. As expected, reality wouldn't progress like the books. Rather than feeling uneasy about his talent as a strategist, Regis was just feeling uneasy in general. Speaking of which, we seem to have captured savages. Why aren't they dead? The princess wished to have a dialogue with them. Dialogue? Is the princess stupid? Barbarians should just be hung or enslaved. He wasn't finding fault or bad-mouthing her. Jerome was really puzzled by the prince's state of mind. Regis didn't think the barbarians were wild beasts, but he understood that such views belonged in the minority. This was also a gamble in order to reach the goal that was too far away. It would be great if the dialogue with the barbarians proceeded well. On the flip side, the princess would gain the reputation of being naive and lack common sense if the dialogue was to break down. Because the endpoint of the target was too difficult to reach, they would always face gambles with the odds against them. It's not too late to doubt the princess' intelligence after the dialogue with the barbarian king ends. It's about time. Regis got up from his chair. Jerome headed for the exit too. I have opened the warehouse. Meat and alcohol will be needed. Regis was wondering what to use as the reward for victory, but it seemed that having a feast was the style of this regiment. That was the case too when they nabbed the bandits some time ago. In his old unit, those who achieved merit could obtain jewels or art pieces as rewards. Would the troops here be fine without such treasures? Regis was worried about that all this time. Thank you for your guidance. This is not for you or the princess. It is the duty of the generals to reward his charges. I will keep that in mind. HMMP. Don't act humble all of a sudden. Are you mocking me? Your request is hard for me to grasp. Just speak your mind. Others couldn't trust you because of the way you act. Yes, just say it without hiding anything. I want a holiday. I want to read books. Why the hell would I care? Regis' shoulders drooped. The central courtyard used for training had been turned into a temporary audience room. Altina was seated in a chair in the middle. To hide her left arm, a large mantle covered her left shoulder and her knees. Regis stood to her right while Jerome stood by to her left. There wasn't any red carpet, but the soldiers lined up in a row, with the Empire's flag hanging from the tip of their spears. Originating from the founding emperor's nickname of l'Empereur Flamme, the flag was red and decorated with 7 swords. Historically, the first emperor fought under the banner of a pure white flag. But in recent times, all the nations treated the white flag as a sign of surrender or ceasefire. Between the 2 rows of soldiers, the barbarian king was brought in. His arms were tied to his waist, with Everett holding the other end of the rope. Eric was standing behind him. Everett stopped 10 paces away from Altina. Altina glanced over at him. It's fine, bring him closer. It's a pain to talk so far away. And release the ropes. I want a dialogue, not a prisoner inspection. Princess, this man moves as fast as a monkey. It's too dangerous. It's normal for Everett to object. You mean I can't beat a bare-handed man? And the general revered as a hero is beside me anyway. Wouldn't they mock me as a coward? Ma. I understand. Everett was worried because Altina was injured, and also the feelings of the troops. Sometimes, the dignity of being in a high position was more important than personal safety. The ropes were removed and the barbarian king moved within 5 paces away. Regis' mouth was dry from the tension. Similar to Jerome, the barbarian king looked like he was in his late 20s, wearing clothes made from animal skin and bird feathers. All the savages depicted in the Empire's drawings shows them as demons defeated by knights, or looking like monkeys or bears. But the barbarian king had a noble air about him. He arrogantly looked down at the princess, refusing to kneel. There were chairs that elevate you higher when you sat down, but it couldn't be moved to this temporary audience hall. I will introduce myself again. I am Marie Quater Argentina de Bulgaria. Princess Ed is 4th in line to the throne. The king didn't say a word. Was it impossible to communicate with words? The soldiers became doubtful. Regis thought the king looked like he was deep in thought. Regis believed that to be true. The barbarian king spoke. He spoke in the language of Germania, the neighboring nation. He probably hailed from Germania, and he was educated enough to understand the Bulgarian language. Even with the eruption of war, interaction between the empire and the surrounding nations remained frequent. It was thus proper manners for royalty and aristocrats to learn the language of neighboring countries. Although Regis was a commoner, he learned Germanian too during his education in the military academy. This means apart from the rank-and-file troops hoisting the flag, everyone present knew Germanian. How insolent of you. This is the princess. Etiquette. Bulgarians like meaningless things. Altina stopped the red face severed by raising her hand. It's okay. He is not a citizen of the empire. It is strange to ask people who are neither subordinates nor citizens to show their respect. The loyal knight commander understood what the princess meant and shut his mouth. Altina asked the barbarian in Germanian. How should I address you? It is proper manners to introduce yourself after being told someone else's name. Or do the barbarians have no names as the rumor says? We don't see ourselves as barbarians. My name is Diethart. I had left my birthplace behind. And our nation is called Bargenheim. Jerome smiled sarcastically. He leaned back exaggeratedly, as if he was scared. He raised his voice for all the troops to hear. Ha, what a grand discovery. I didn't know the savages can joke. That dark forest is actually a country. Bulgaria's neighboring country was not the Germania trash, but the barbarian nation. All the soldiers laughed heartily. Diethart grind his teeth as he was being mocked, but the one erupting in anger was Altina. Her right fist smashed on her armrest, shattering the elegant wooden chair into pieces. It seemed like I have to teach you how to receive guests. That's enough, all of you leave. Everard protested strongly, but Altina wasn't taking back her words. She straightened the half-destroyed chair with a kick. Everyone retreat by 30 paces. This is an order. Jerome rubbed the scar on his jaw. Foo. Will that be fine? You might get strangled by the barbarian, right? I will be depending on you if that happened. What if you were taken hostage? So you do worry about me. Forget it. Chat with that Germania idiot however much you want. Jerome walked towards the wall. Regis was planning to leave, but Altina grabbed him by the collar. Regis thought. Didn't you order everyone to leave? Other people were present, so he answered formally. By the princess' command. You are the strategist. This is the time for you to work. Any objections? I am a bit thirsty. I forgot about that. Regis and Altina stayed behind while Jerome and the troops retreated by 30 steps all the way to the wall. Everard and Eric kept their distance too. A short while later, 2 new chairs, a table as well as red wine was sent over. Diethart took a seat first. Altina sat opposite him while Regis stood to one side. Doesn't this feel great? It is just like a cafe terrace. Yes, in the courtyard with piling snow, a cafe terrace surrounded by menacing soldiers. This will definitely be popular in the Empire, although I haven't seen one before. It might attract a huge crowd. Altina seemed to be in a good mood and smiled. Diethart doesn't look too friendly. Bulgarians seem to prefer drinking coffee by the side of the road. How queer. The northern nations are cold, so it's understandable. Bulgaria has a warm climate and the wind feels nice. That might be so, but I have never visited an open-air cafe by the streets before. Just once. I want to try drinking coffee in a nice shop. If Altina visited a cafe terrace, it would attract a large crowd of spectators. Drinking coffee leisurely was impossible. There should be a balcony in a palace. Regis swallowed these words. The coffee in a place filled with jealousy and mockery wouldn't taste nice no matter what. Princess, there isn't much time left before the sun sets. We have questions for you. Diethart, are you the king of Bargenheim? Neen. We formed a nation but we have no kings. I just happen to be one of the founders, so everyone follows my lead. I won't take money or food from my fellow citizens. Oh, so there is no taxation. Altina thought it was something fresh and interesting. Isn't that great, Regis? A country without taxes. The citizens must be so happy. If the citizens don't think it is unfair, wouldn't everyone be equal if there were no taxes? For example, the fields need to be guarded. Who will decide the order of the watch? Him? Wouldn't a representative like Diethart do that? I see. Then the king is Mr. Diethart and the taxes will be in the form of labor as the watchman. When 2 or more people live together, there will be people who make decisions and people who provide services. No matter what their names may be, they are still the kings and tax collectors. No taxation means no country. An organization can't be formed with ideals alone. Although the citizens will still be supportive while the country was still winning battles, Bargenheim might indeed be a small nation and it is a fact we could not reach our ideals in many areas. But the empire is wrong. We have many people who came to us to escape the tyranny of the empire. Regis didn't argue and waited for Altina to speak. This was the dialogue she was hoping for. He could only assist her from the side. If she wanted to take the path of greatness, negotiations such as this were unavoidable. Considering Regis' position, it was possible for the other party to refuse dialogue with him. Altina needed to take the lead in the dialogue. I think the empire is wrong too. He should have answered instead. Regis regretted his decision and his stomach started to hurt. Her words probably didn't reach Jerome and the troops standing by the wall in the courtyard. Even so, this wasn't something you should confess plainly to the barbarians. What are you saying? You are not making sense. There is no reason why a royalty can't be against the empire, right? They shouldn't be able to. That is their position. A barbarian lecturing a royal princess on what her mindset should be. How troubling. But Diethart was very well educated. He was explaining the theory correctly. I want to live for my beliefs, and not let others set my position for me. So you are going against the empire. You want to save the citizens that are treated unjustly? You are wrong. When large armies clash and lead to civil war, the ones who suffer are the citizens. Regis thought about this too, but the answer was clear when he read the chronicles of history. Altina understood as well. If the citizens want to be saved, they should be the ones working hard for it, right? If they are not willing, they can ignore me and continue to conform to the system. Because I am not God, it is impossible for me to erase all the sufferings without letting anyone know. Only the citizens can save themselves. But what would be the meaning of your existence then? Altina looked towards Regis. Regis thought Altina was asking for his opinion. But that wasn't so. She continued immediately. I just need a chance, that's all. Incomprehensible. Bulgarians incomprehensible beautify their sins. Words need to be logical and precise. Yeah, this means my criticism of the tyranny can push the citizens to take action and save themselves. That is the meaning of my existence, right? That's too irresponsible. Seeking happiness for your followers are the duties of those with a high status. Regis, do I have that obligation? Am I irresponsible? Taking action in order to change the empire's system and uniting them and meeting their expectations are your obligations. Keeping the promise is a simple theory that must be followed. What about giving up halfway? You will be criticized. That is politics. Or rather, the biggest problem with the empire is the administrators who don't bring happiness to the people don't face criticism or punishment, or lose their authority. I see. This means the nation I want to create after becoming empress must be able to criticize and punish me if I fail to deliver happiness to the people. After working so hard to becoming empress, you might be executed under the very law you implement. That might be possible. Giving up? Why? The ruler's mistake will cause much suffering and death. If that is so, the one who should suffer most should be the ruler, right? Regis remembered something Altina said. If you want others to risk their lives, you have bet yours too. Something like that. Altina was too animated. Although Regis thought so, he didn't say it out. If Altina doesn't think about protecting herself, the people around her can do so for her. I will become empress and change the empire for you to see. If my strength is insufficient, I will take responsibility by giving everything up I have. The expression of the other party changes. His face that was a mixture of hate and mockery disappeared, replaced by calm and sincerity. I get it now. You seem ready to take responsibility. An attitude full of resolve. But I don't plan to fail. Seems like I misunderstood you earlier. I thought you were someone who oppresses the citizens and didn't even realize that. A shameless royalty. You didn't really misunderstand. I can't even bring happiness to a single person. Even the bread I ate today was taken from the person who worked hard to bake it. I see. That's how you think about this. I learned it from Regis and practiced it immediately. I might be wrong too. I always believed a country without taxation is the ideal nation. But in reality, the feeling of unfairness is growing among the citizens. Not fixing a social contract created inequality. A country needs laws. Taxation is required for the benefit of society. If I can't make the citizens happy, I would need to accept criticism and punishment as the leader. Although I have the resolve. Diethart's words turned heavy as he gritted his teeth. It's the trouble of a leader. In order to support Altina, who was at a loss, Regis interjected. If the leader of an organization wants to change the policy, clashes and criticism unrelated to it will definitely arise. That's why it's hard to make alterations when things are going well. Mr. Diethart, you are right in your judgment. Although I realized it is a fraud, I can't correct it, because I don't have the purity of the young princess. Diethart looked at Regis, not with murderous intent like before, but with hints of respect. Are you a chamberlain, or a soldier? I am, a strategist. Something like that. Strategist. So the man behind my capture was you. The ones who did it were the troops. But I am the one who planned it. Was he angry about falling into the trap? Regis was scared. It might be a little too late, but Regis straightened his back so Altina won't see his shameful side. Diethart seemed resigned when he said, if I have a strategist like you, I might not have ended up like this. You flatter me. With a large discrepancy in numbers, winning was only natural. No matter what, it is my complete loss. I hope you will not execute the others and at least spare them their lives. That will be decided by the princess. Altina nodded and continued. There is something I want to know. Why did you attack this fort? To seek revenge against the empire? Some citizens of Bargenheim might bear hate against the empire, and some lost their kin in the long years of war. But revenge was not our goal. Germania Federation is pioneering into the forest and threatening our territory. This is a pressing matter in some ways. Yes, especially this year. We needed more food and shelter with the increase in population. These issues will be solved if we take this fort. I really wish you guys won't fight the empire, but attack the Varden Duchy. That is impossible with Fort Vox in the way. Altina asked with her head tilted. Regis whispered into her ears in a hurry, using a volume only she could hear. That's the fort of Varden Duchy. In its 40 years of history since its construction, no enemy had ever taken a single step into it. A place worthy of the phrase invincible. Ah, so there's such a place. It is shameful for the commander to not know about the enemy fort opposite us. I know, alright. But my opponent so far was something like Sir Jerome or Mahmoud. I will work on those later. She wasn't schooled in the way of military commanders. She still needed time to prepare. Right now, Altina was right about the age to enroll in military academy. Anyway, Altina pulled the topic back on track, so the people of Bargenheim didn't attack us out of hatred, or rather, that wasn't the main reason. Altina leaned forward, using her right hand to brace against the table as her left was in a sling under her cloak. I don't want to execute you. I have a goal, and I can't achieve it with the troops in this fortress alone. I won't make you my subordinate, but I wish for the people of Bargenheim to help me. Regis was thinking the same thing. With just the 3,000 soldiers of the border regiment, it was impossible to stand up against the influence of the other princes. The dumbstruck Dyathart considered for a moment. I see. Not killing me and making me part of your forces. Very logical. That means you will help me, right? Dyathart stopped Altina, who was all smiles. I won't agree to this just for sparing the life of me and my warriors. We have comrades that bear a grudge against the Empire. If I bring back acceptable terms, I will be branded a traitor who sold out his country for fear of my life. Ah, you are right. What should we do? Regis, no problem. I have read countless treaty between nations and can make an appropriate proposal. Phew, that's a big help. But, why did you even read those things? Isn't such terms free to read? The early versions were rather boring. The High Britannia and Netherlands Treaty in the year 890 was great. In place of 30,000 pounds of silver, tea leaves weighing the same was sent as tribute. There were treaties like this. That country loves tea a bit too much. Ha ha ha. As part of peace negotiation, marriage and gifts are very common. What should we give as presents then? Since both parties are negotiating in secret, there isn't a need for souvenirs. In my humble opinion, I think it would be unnecessary. You could have gone without the formalities. So, what terms should be set for this meeting? Regis compiled the good parts of all the treaties he had ever read. Princess Mariequater requests the nation of Bargenheim Freyed, specifically, to form a common alliance against their neighboring enemy Germania Federation. As compensation, food and shelter to tide over the winter will be provided. When the princess ascends the throne as empress, the sovereignty of Bargenheim will be recognized and a non-aggression agreement between both nations will take effect. I see. I don't really get it, but it really sounds like a treaty. You are asking us to be a colony of the Empire? I think both sides should be equal in status, because both man and nation shouldn't have the distinction of being more prestigious than others. Altina concluded this as a matter of fact. Dyathart was deep in thought. I can convince my comrades if these terms can be done. That means you will help us, right? Altina extended her right hand. Shaking hands might be bad. Before Regis can stop her, Dyathart had already shook his head. The troops are watching. The soldiers won't want to follow a princess who treats the king of barbarians as equals. You have to succeed no matter what, or I will be troubled. This is for the good of my nation too. That aside, this is really outstanding. It's a rare chance to meet such an excellent person. Someone I want to bring back as my partner. That means becoming his bride? Someone I want to spend the rest of my life with? This is the first time I felt this way. This must be love. Altina sprung from her chair with her face all red. What should I do? Regis, what to do? Of course is not. Altina is just 14. She can't legally marry. That's the only reason? It should be dependent on your feelings. As for me, if possible, but I don't have the authority to decide, and love should be the freedom of the individual. That's how Killer described the best way to achieve happiness in his books. Although that author is a bit flirty towards female characters, Regis was panicking because Altina received a marriage proposal. He couldn't express himself fluently. Is Regis fine with it if I marry him? From my position, what are you talking about? And walked over without hesitation. Up close, he was taller than Jerome. His shoulders were broad and full of spirit. Maybe it was the feathers and leather clothing that makes the man. His large hands held Regis's hand, not Altina's. It was a hand of a warrior's hand. Regis's hand was thin and white. Compared to him, it was really feminine. Dyathart looked at him with passionate eyes. If you could indulge me, I wish for you to come over to Bargenheim to guide me. She squeezed between them and forcefully separated the two. I understand. There is no reason to let such an excellent strategist go. Yes, because Regis is my strategist. Did he just want to bring me back as a strategist? What a relief. Regis relaxed as he thought. He read about the aristocrats of Germania Federation preferring men. Because Dyathart hailed from the Federation, it made Regis broke out in cold sweat. He was just standing, but this is the first time he had sweated so much. Dyathart knelt before Altina, sparing the lives of my people, providing us with resources and treating us as equals. Princess Mariequater, I offer you my gratitude for your aid and promise to support you in accomplishing your grand ambition. Thank you. I am grateful for the assistance of you and your nation. I pray for your success. He spoke in fluent Bulgarian. Regis was reminded of the founding of the empire. Adrian Bulgaria was born in the region of Aquitaine, which was ruled by several small nations, present-day western region of Bulgaria Empire. He had a hard life being raised as a nomad, but it helped him develop unmatched skills in sword and horse riding. He won every battle he participated in, and he continued winning. According to legend, in a battle of wits against the gods, he had a one-on-one duel with the Demon King. The historical accounts were passed down by words of mouth. So much of it was exaggerated. Adrian Bulgaria became the first emperor of the empire. He was hailed by the people as the Flame Emperor because of his hair and eyes that were crimson red. No chronicles records of when he set his mind on building the empire were found. The aristocrats claimed the emperor was simply born as one. Religious teachings preached that he received a revelation from God. The soldiers and merchants believed that only the victors can call themselves emperor. Regis thought the most exceptional book he read was the Bible. As for why it was exceptional, Regis just needs to state he believes in the Bible and save the trouble of arguing with people. Next would be the works of historical researchers. Adrian never addressed himself as emperor, that's what the books proposed. After the death of King Adrian, those in power deify him in order to use the massive influence of a great leader to stabilize control over the empire. Adrian's son was groomed to become the second emperor, and evidence was presented to substantiate this point, and naturally, this position wouldn't be openly accepted. Regardless of the specifics, Adrian led the nomads in a series of battles, uniting the neighboring nations and building up the strength of his country in order to lay the foundation of a gigantic empire. The times and situation might be different, but Altina, who had obtained the assistance of the barbarians, might just be taking her first step on the path to greatness. When he saw Dyathart kneeling in front of Altina, Regis wondered if he was witnessing a historic event, which made his temperature rise. Dyathart was released and he conveyed the result of the dialogue to the barbarians. Regis thought there would be complications because of the people who hated the empire, but things sailed over smoothly either because of the influence of the leader or the attractive terms of support in the form of resources, or maybe they had lost the will to fight to the bitter end. The next day, the barbarians were provided with tents and preserved food meant for a long campaign. It's not that they don't trust the other party, but it was no laughing matter if the barbarians were to run away after taking the items. There was also the need to exchange intelligence, so 5 soldiers who can speak Germanian went together with the savages. After accepting the position of strategist during the climax of the duel, Regis had to log down the battles and peace negotiations that happened on the same day, and he can't just chronicle everything that happened truthfully. Regis' administrative work increased by threefold, something that took 30 people to manage normally. He spent every day buried in documents and welcomed the new year without realizing it. Regis recounted painfully several days later. Compared to the times when the savages invaded the fort, the retreat when headquarters were burning and facing the grey wolves in the blizzard, I really felt I was going to die. Interlude. Year 851 of the Empire, Regis Tilda. Ah, found you. Altina ran into the officers' dining hall. She seemed to be searching for him. Altina walked opposite Regis and sat down. It was already 3 p.m., there were no other officers around. Don't shout my name as you walk. I am not a cat or a dog. That's not true. Cats and dogs will respond and run to you if you call out to them. That's correct. Regis didn't respond when he heard his name being called. Even so, even if I'm worse than a cat or dog, can you not shout my name as you walk? Why, isn't that embarrassing? I am usually in my room anyway. It's better for your health if you exercise once in a while, okay? Yes, there seems to be cases of nobles falling sick from the lack of exercise, but that has nothing to do with commoners. And I would rather sleep more for the good of my health. Insomnia? I haven't settled the tasks from last year. Era, that must be tough. If you sympathize with me, can you increase the number of admin officers? Regis complains in an exhausted voice. Altina shrugs. I have already submitted a request, but it will be hard. News of Belsmith not having any admin officers seem to have spread. No one wants to come because they will be worked to death. Please tell the military department I am still alive, so it won't really kill anyone. Just that the documents are spilling from the rooms and there is no time to sleep. Can I just tell them what you just said? Please include in your recruitment request that it is safe, simple and pays relatively well. Well, I will settle this appropriately. That aside, listen to this. My friend in the capital sent me a letter. Altina took out a white high-class envelope. It was addressed to her. Regis started doubting his eyes and ears. What? I didn't say anything that's surprising, right? What is shocking is the contents. You have friends? That was a shock. Altina frowned. You. What did you see me as? No, I thought you were isolated in the palace. Yugugu. My relationships with the aristocrats wasn't too good. As the two chatted, the maid Clarice served red tea. She was a mature young lady. She was slightly older than Regis, but that wasn't the reason for her maturity. Pardon me, princess. Would you like some tea? I want some. Thank you. You are welcome. What about Mr. Regis? He had this conversation before. Regis thought Clarice was asking him if he would like some red tea, but she toyed with him saying I was asking about your plans for the future. In order to not make the same mistake, Regis thought carefully and asked. Are you asking about my plan for the future? Era, I am so happy. Mr. Regis wants to discuss your future with me. It's a bit embarrassing to do that in front of the princess. To receive a marriage proposal while I was pouring a cup of red tea. What should I do? Princess? Clarice acted like a maiden in love. Altina opened her eyes wide. That was a marriage proposal? No, that's not what I meant. That's right. What a surprise. Foo. Please enjoy your red tea. By the way, princess, is that letter from Sir Balthazar? Yeah, A big shot from the capital. Regis heard the name before, but he can't remember who it was. It was the name of a man. Regis started to panic for some unknown reason. Is he Altina's friend? Yes, he is. He might be an old man over 60, but he was a famous swordsman. Have you heard of him before? Him? Could it be Balthazar Basil de Balzac, the top swordsman in the Empire? That's right. He came from a clan that was bestowed with the sword of the Flame Emperor since the Empire's founding. Balthazar might have retired, but he will still show up in the palace from time to time. How did you get to know him? I was swinging my sword in the courtyard when he shouted wrong at me. Regis was stunned. Clarisse shook her head slightly. There were too many places to retort. The princess was swing a sword in the courtyard of the palace. Ahaha, I was 10 back then. Not only that day, right? Well, almost every day. This had nothing to do with being 10 years old, Regis thought. And Sir Balthazar, who shouted at the young princess after seeing her sword swing, was also. He said that swinging a sword had nothing to do with being a girl or royalty. You are just a swordsman. What an eccentric man. But if not for that, he wouldn't have spoken to Altina, who was ostracized in the palace. Since that time, he would teach me about the sword every time he dropped by the palace. Teach you? That's Sir Balthazar? Yeah, he doesn't take in students, but he can teach me as a fellow swordsman. And so, we became friends. In a book that teaches sword style said that the Balzac clan only passes down their skills within their family and did not take in disciples. Ah, I see. Regis was stunned, but Altina seemed at ease. Clarisse reminisced. Both of them were always happily swinging swords. I served them water often too. Is that so? He wanted to teach me too. That was very troubling. Ahaha, that's tight. Maybe Balthazar was just bored, but aren't the skills only passed down within the clan? Maybe he only taught the basics without touching the secret skills. Balthazar was also aged and retired, but just being the disciple of the strongest swordsman is an impressive title. No wonder Altina was so strong despite having no battle experience. Why did the elderly swordsman teach the princess who wasn't related to him? Was it on a whim? Or did he do so out of pity? I want to meet and chat with him, Regis thought. Altina opened a letter. Balthazar seemed to have heard rumors about our border regiment. Rumors? This. She laid the letter on the table. The high-quality paper was filled with words that were written in a strong style. Tilda, when you welcome the new year, you should have received this letter. I have distanced myself from worldly affairs, but I took up my pen after hearing some happy news. I heard that our barbarians friends to the north had allied with us, bolstering our number by 2 to 3 times. It reminds me of the legend of the Flame Emperor. Just imagining the panicking frail nobles made me happy. I wanted to rush over with the Emperor's sword as well, but my wife had regrettably detained me. My wife is stronger than the swordsman bestowed with the Emperor's sword. I plan to be your senior even in heaven, so don't go there before me. To my friend from old Balthazar, Tilda. Him. So that's it. Regis nodded. Altina smiled innocently. This is great. Seemed like the news is already spreading in the Empire. I asked them to take care not to leak the news out, but it was futile. If so much material was exported, the soldiers will definitely realize it. Is it bad for others to know that the barbarians had allied with us? In a sense, this is within the jurisdiction of the Lord of the Land, Sir Jerome, and the commander of the Fort Altina. But this warning means things might be dire. Is that so? I thought it would be better for others to think we are strong. The key to winning in a chaotic battle is to keep a low profile. Balthazar was worried about you too. That's what he meant by not going to heaven. So I might die first. This was part of the reason. Regis pointed at the letter and said, the barbarians are an unknown entity for the people of the Empire. The military department is unable to gauge the effect of their support, whether the regiment's strength had grown by 2 or 3 times. This is obviously a military matter, but he mentioned the nobles panicking, so they might be unhappy with you. That's what it says? The aristocrats likes to look down on others just like their love for red wine, and they don't feel guilty about doing that. But if the subject of their scorn were to pick up their swords, they will review their past actions and become afraid. In their eyes you are no different from the devil. I think they are the devils sucking blood from the citizens. Influenced by her mother who was born a commoner, Altina was aware of the feelings of the citizens. In summary, Regis is worried that we will be disliked by the nobles, right? That's a simple way of putting it. That's what happened to Sir Jerome. Ah, Altina nodded. Jerome performed too well on the battlefield and was ostracized by the other nobles. He was sent to the borders and chased out of the imperial capital. He had never lost a duel before and was very capable in commanding troops. They thought things will be fine if they exiled the hero and the princess to the tough environment of the front lines. But they obtained power from an unexpected source. What would you do if you were in their shoes? Summon them back? That is the ideal method. It is easier to handle things within your line of sight, but this is unlikely. Nobles place emphasis on presentation and feelings. They won't ask someone who they are hostile against to come back. Indeed, will they forbid the alliance with the barbarians? That will be easy to handle. The reports didn't mention any alliance, so we will be fine if the treaty was drawn up in secret. They will definitely do something right. I hope it's nothing too drastic. There were tons of ways to deplete the regiment's forces, and the second Prince Little was said to be a smart man. He will definitely do something about the border regiment and its unexpected reinforcements. We need to think of countermeasures.